and welcome back to the podcast. We are here with Robin Singhvi from GetSmartCue.com, and SmartCue enables enterprise software sales teams to create a library of personalized product demos to help them close deals faster. So we're going to be hearing all about how SmartCue is different and how it stands out and why you should use it compared to all the other possible things you should be doing. So Robin, how are you doing today? Tell me some cool stuff.
Hey, Robert, I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. I looked at the website where you can create personalized demos for every prospect because usually the demos don't allow for personalization, can be boring and unengaging. And I'm excited about this because many times I'm the kind of person where I'll want to record like a quick loom or like take some Snagit screenshots and put some arrows in a Google document. And sometimes it's so laborious to do it. And I'm worried that someone's not going to be grabbed along with the demo. So what the heck is SmartCue and how is it better than some of those frustrating things I mentioned?
Yeah, and it's interesting, Robert, that you mentioned all of those things because, that is how we've been trying to hack our way through to trying to deliver demos that are, quote unquote, personalized, right? And so the problem has been sort of brewing in my mind for the past number of years because I've spent time in the sales enablement space and as a solutions consultant. And so with SmartCue, what we wanted to do was kind of standardize and make this process really easy for whichever function in the organization owns the creation, maintenance, and updation of demos, right? Especially in SaaS because your product is ever evolving, right? It's not like legacy software that gets updated like every 6 months or so. You have new product features coming out every, perhaps 2 to 4 weeks. And so how do you ensure that your demos are, one, always up to date with the latest and greatest of your product? And second, they're sort of tailored to your buyers, right? So with SmartCue, what we allow folks to do is create a library of demos that is, by buyer persona, by use case, by industry, whatever is the construct that you or your organization uses when selling to your buyers, right? And these demos, really, the ones that you create, literally is a two-step process. The first being you kind of go in and capture like you would do with a Snagit or any of those tools that are more for screen capture. With SmartCue, you use the same concept to capture the flow of a given demo for a given buyer persona. And step two is you add contextual or personalized cues to that demo flow so that when a rep is actually doing a demo over Zoom or Google Meets or whatever virtual meeting platform you use, you as a rep can go through your demo like you normally would. You'd open up your browser window and go through your demo, and SmartCue would run off on the side, only visible to the presenter, and it would queue you up or show you battle cards or whatever you want to call it that tell you that, hey, when you're showing this part of your product to this buyer persona, this is how you should ideally message it. These are the case studies or the numbers or the metrics that you should highlight, because what you want to do is not talk about feature function, but talk about the value that your product or solution brings to your buyer and how it actually solves the problem that they've come to you with, right? So that's the the quick 60-second version of what SmartCue does and how it helps sales teams.
And so just to make sure I'm understanding you right, like there's,
yes,
as we've said, like many times you have to kind of redo a demo or update it in some form, right? Like the interface changes,
yes,
colors changes, and someone might be watching it and saying like, well, this used to be a blue button and now it's a green button. And you and I would like to say, well, can you figure it out anyway? But it throws you off when it's not 100%. So many times you have to kind of redo or refine or update these demos. And so if I'm hearing you right, it's kind of like when you do a PowerPoint and you have like the notes underneath,
speaker notes,
kind of like help you through, because many times like I'll be recording like a demo for something, and then I'll have in another screen like some other list of notes and like, okay, I need to make sure I'm saying this and this or clicking this and this. and I'm like,
Right.
where's my spot over here versus I'm doing the demo over here. So if I'm understanding you right, it's like the cues follow you along with the presenter so that you remember to say this or that or click this or that.
Exactly. Yes, you're absolutely right. I think you've captured it well. A great way to think about SmartCue is like speaker notes on steroids.
Oh, well, great. And there's that, and so, but like you wonder, okay, well, why shouldn't I just kind of hack it? Like we said at the beginning, right? Why shouldn't I just record a bunch of videos and put them in some kind of organized folders? Like, what's the real value of SmartCue? You mentioned that there's like the cues and battle cards and things like that, but like, why shouldn't I just try to fudge it and try to get it almost all the way there without this tool?
Yeah, so that's a great question, right? So a couple of reasons. One is from the sales rep's perspective, right? That, a video doesn't necessarily tell you what the reaction of the client is. It doesn't allow you to tailor or change direction when you're demoing to a client based on, what is it that they're really interested in, what makes their eyes light up when you're showcasing something to them. With a video, you have no idea. Like, you'll send something and then hope that that's what they really wanted, right? So you want to be able to, one, in a live demo, ensure that your client is getting to see what they want to see and be able to sort of change tack midway if you realize that, hey, you know what, it seems that, this prospect really is resonating with something else that just caught his eye. So I, as a sales rep, need to be able to go off script, right? And when you do that, how do you ensure that your messaging is still on point and you're not fumbling for words, right? So that's kind of one key reason why you want to be using a product like SmartCue. The second is actually for sales leaders, right? So as sales leaders, when you're selling complex enterprise software, you want to be able to bring in a level of consistency across all of your reps. You don't want that only my top performing salesperson is able to just do great demos. You want to be able to take that standard and ensure that the rest of your sales team is also able to get as close to that kind of performance or demo delivery as possible, right? How do you do that? That SmartCue helps with that because it levels the playing field, so to speak, and make sure that every sales rep has the right information at the right time with the right context for the right buyer. And furthermore, as sales leaders, what you also want to be able to do is understand what is the impact of demos to your sales motion, right? How are they helping you move your sales cycle along faster, right? Does it take X number of demos to actually get a lead to convert into a deal and then close? What type of demos are resonating best with your buyer personas, right? Which ones are leading to the fastest sort of movement from one stage to the other? You also want to know that, hey, you know what? Okay, as a sales leader, I know that my reps are spending, 20 hours, perhaps a week across all sales reps in meetings. But what I don't always necessarily know is in those meetings, how much time are they spending actually showcasing the product versus showing the deck versus doing discovery or intros and things like that, right? Starting to get that kind of intelligence and insights helps the sales leader continually refine their sales motion and optimize it to sort of help them hit and exceed quota. So those are a few reasons. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense as far as there's like you have all these sales reps that have kind of different levels of skills, and it's easy to say like, oh, well, they can figure it out. But then by having this kind of standard, you have the predictability, and then the ones that are kind of maybe not great, or maybe they're new or don't have the skills developed yet, this helps them along. And then those that are highly skilled, this kind of makes they can put their mental energies elsewhere, like dealing with kind of this live one-on-one with the client. And so some of this tracking that you're mentioning, like how is that done? Do they, as they're like giving this demo, are they like clicking things and logging things? Like how is all this tracking accomplished?
Yeah, so the tracking is, we basically track what URL you're on, and then, getting technical, we look at the XPath and the DOM element that you're spending time on, and then extrapolate it with like, timestamp it and ensure that, hey, you know what, okay, this URL was for this feature, this module, and you spent this much time doing that. That's, at a very high level. I don't want to bore the listeners with like the technical details.
Okay, well, fair enough. So it does get tracked, so that way you can go back and
It
look at
does.
that data and then kind of figure out how to better your best, so to speak. And so since
Hmm.
we're saying like, okay, we don't want to focus on too much of the techie stuff, but we want to think about, well, the best ways to use this tool. And so since you're all about demos, I'm sure you've seen demos go poorly and demos go greatly. So as far as product demos and all these different verticals you're in,
Yeah.
what should we be doing more with our demos, and what should we be staying away from?
That's a great question, and that could be a podcast episode in itself, right? But I think at a high level, without question, your demos need to be tailored to the problem statement that the buyer came to you with. And I think what is important to remember is that a demo is really one sort of weapon in your array of, or in your arsenal, right? And you have to use it well. And to be able to use a demo well, you have to do discovery well, right? You have to first ensure that you're actually really understanding what the problem is. Is the client right for what you're trying to pitch to them? Do they have a problem that is big enough, that is valuable enough to them? And if you are able to solve that problem with your solution, will you make your buyer look good? Right? Will solving the problem help him or her advance in their career, perhaps make them look good in front of their bosses, help them close more deals, whatever is the metric that your product that you're selling to them will help them achieve, right? I think that's key. In addition, some things that I've kind of picked up over the years is that when we're selling our own product, we're super biased. Like, we love it. We think every little feature is great, but I think the Pareto principle really applies when you're showcasing your product, that the prospect is coming to you with one problem or two problems. And all really need to do is show, like, maybe 20% of your product, which really solves the problem. Everything else is gravy to your buyer, right? And so, ensuring that you're showing what really matters is very important, right? And then the one thing that I like to do a lot is I always like to end my calls a few minutes before the scheduled time. The idea being that allows you to ensure that you're hitting the key points and not laboring on about things that perhaps are not as important, but also it gives both you and the prospect enough breathing room to figure out the right next steps without being rushed, to ensure that any open or sort of questions that are left unanswered have enough time allocated, and that no one is felt rushed. And at the end of the meeting, you're not left with like, okay, well, great meeting. But once you're done, you're like, okay, but what next? I have no idea. Right. So those are a few things that I like to practice when I'm doing my demos.
Yeah, those are great things to keep in mind. That it's really tempting to get too far off the beaten path, go on some weird tangent. It's tempting to be too in love with your own software and say, well, we're so smart, we did this and that feature. It's tempting to
Right.
go like tab by tab, click by click, and who wants that? And I mean, people's time is limited. And so you're saying that the mindset to be in is, what problem did they want to solve anyway? And where are they stuck? And how do we just show that 20% and just say, you do this, and then boom, now you get to your result, instead of just
Yeah.
showing them the whole map. They don't need to see everything. You don't need to fill all that meeting space all through. You just need to get their problem solved, and to, as you said, make them like feel good and look smart and advance them in their career as far as the software solving this problem. And so, it's always fun to get excited about the ways that software is being used. So what sorts of like software, what sort of industries have you excited about the ways you've been using SmartCue? Like, do you have any fun like case studies or success stories to share?
So we do, and I think where we end up excelling is where the company is selling a complex product in itself, right? Enterprise products, and they're selling to multiple different buyers, right? So let's take an example, right? So for example, health tech is a great vertical that, and it's also a vertical that I spent time in. So I know that that industry could definitely use a solution like SmartCue. Is that, they're selling very complex products, which are complex not just in terms of feature functionality, but also from a compliance perspective, a lot of times from a clinical perspective. So ensuring that your sales reps really are rounded out in terms of their knowledge about the product, the compliance angles, and the clinical angles is very important, and not always very easy or straightforward to do. And then the buyers there are also very unique and with their own sets of problems, right? So, you could sell to an insurance company, you could sell to a hospital system, you could sell to a pharmacy, you could sell to government agencies, you could sell to like large employers. And even there, you could have multiple different types of buyer personas within each of those organizations to whom you need to show your product or parts of your product that solve their specific problem statement within their organization, right? So those are the types of industries where I think we see a lot of quick buy-in, right? The sell is not as hard because they understand the problem. They realize that by solving them, they can really make an impact on the sales cycle, the duration of the sales cycle, the quality of the leads that are coming in and that you're qualifying. And so when we go into these meetings, it's not a matter of like, hey, is this a problem for me? The question always is that, okay, how fast can you solve this problem for me?
I like that a
So that's
lot.
that's
And
that's a great example of the industry that we've seen a lot of success in.
And I think we've all seen demos like the what you don't want to do, right? Where you keep thinking like, okay, I'm still waiting for something to grab me. And you're
Right.
saying that a good mindset is so you have like your software and you have these different kind of clusters of people, and they already know that they're stuck and they already know that there's a better way to solve their problem, and your software just says here's this better way, instead of trying to convince you and saying like, well, here's the software and we're getting ready to show you some stuff. You say, well, here's just how to get your problem solved faster and better.
Right, right, right. Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think that's all. That's also human nature, right? You go into every conversation with an agenda, with something that you want to get out of it. The faster I can get you to it, the more engaged you will be, and the more receptive you will be to my idea or my conversation.
And when you get me there faster, it's
Absolutely.
simpler, and I can get my head wrapped around it, and it keeps my attention span and all these extra fun benefits. And so as we're kind of
Yeah.
getting near the tail end of our conversation here, it's always fun to think about the future possibilities, the what ifs, and the cutting edge. So is
Ooh.
there anything fun planned in the future for SmartCue, like any future features, or is there any parts of the software that you wish your customers would use more?
So, SmartQ's mission really is to become like the operating system for sales teams, right? And we're starting with helping them deliver better product demos. That's our wedge, right? And we're again, even in that wedge, we're focusing on helping them deliver better live product demos. The thing that we're expanding into is that, okay, you've done a great live product demo, but then how do you ensure that the individual that you've done the demo for, given the demo to, is able to convey the value proposition the way you did to their bosses or to their colleagues, right? So expanding out into interactive sort of self-serve demos that, hey, you know what? I did this demo for you. Here's a link. You can click through on it and take this to your colleagues or your peers and evangelize it without necessarily me being in the room, but me giving you a guided experience with the right cues in that interactive demo to help you sort of evangelize, right? So that's that's sort of the immediate or next steps in our roadmap, right? Of course, then we want to move into all the other areas that we can drive efficiency for sales teams. So whether it is note taking, whether it is reducing a lot of the admin work that they end up doing, whether it is pushing stuff to their CRM, updating the CRM, even with respect to client outreach, that sending out minutes of meetings or thank you notes or action items or leave behinds after the meeting. How do you sort of automate that or improve that so that what you're eventually doing is helping reps spend more time selling and less time doing work that is sort of like an overhead, which needs to be done. But if you can optimize and minimize that, you can give more time back to sales teams to do what they do best, which is to sell more.
And to think more, right? And to further like refine their process. And you're making me think about all these different times in past lives, different careers where like there was one time when like there was some vendor that was showing a media server to our organization. And I mean, on the surface, not very interesting, but when he was getting into it and he was saying like, you can configure this and you can set up that, it was just somehow came alive. And I think that it's an important concept to be thinking about. Like you're mentioning these ideas about like evangelizing the software and getting the buy-in and then kind of like further replicating the success of if you figure out a really dialed in way to deliver a demo, how to get all your sales reps to doing that, or if your sales rep shows something to a customer, then when they have to show to their boss or whoever, they can just kind of further move that along. And that way it gets everyone excited about using the software. So that way it actually sticks. And so it's not just something where you have to force it or they use it and it doesn't actually get applied. It's like, it's whatever the software is, it actually solves the problem. So like these are exciting times ahead for SmartCue and for anyone using SmartCue. So how does an organization know if they're the right fit to use this? And if they are, where do they go? What's the next step?
Yeah. So if you sell a complex software product and you have a decent sized sales team, and our sweet spot is like if you have 10 or more people in your sales organization, and if your ACV is north of $50,000, right? I think that's where we can start to add value pretty much immediately, right? Help you do better, help you sell better, optimize and bring consistency in your sales teams and your sales processes. And then where can they find me? I mean, getsmartcue.com. Obviously, we have a YouTube channel now, which is youtube.com/@getsmartcue. We're on Twitter and LinkedIn. It's GetSmartCue on all the handles. And I'm pretty active within the community as well. So find me on all of the social platforms. It'll be my first name, last name, Robin Singhvi. And yeah, I mean, as an early stage startup, I think our competitive advantage is the fact that we're extremely customer centric, we're extremely agile, and as a founder, I spend all of my time, as much of my time as possible, speaking with prospects and customers. So if you reach out to me through email or any of these social channels, I'll definitely be engaging with you.
Well, fantastic. And so you practice what you preach, right? You're here live in a podcast, you answer all these questions, and we all need to be tapping into some of that. If we have our startup or our company, we want to be the kind of person that is passionate and telling anyone and everyone who will listen to us about what it is that we do, and not just pumping out the blog posts and the videos and those sorts of things, but actually doing the live one-on-one, which is what demos are all about. So if what Robin just described there sounds like you and your company, then you need to go and at the very least go to YouTube, to youtube.com/@SmartCue. So that way you can get subscribed and start seeing these videos show up. That way you can start kind of just seeing him and his software and what it does. And then more importantly, go to getsmartcue.com and go there and click around on the site. and contact his company and get that meeting set up so that way you can begin using this. If you want to take your startup and your software and your demo seriously, this is the next logical step, going to getsmartcue.com. And thank you, Robin, for showing up and for just filling our minds with all kinds of cool ideas and getting us on that next step. Getsmartcue.com is the place to go. And I appreciate you showing up. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Robert. This is a great conversation.